Hey, Nicki.
Hey, how are you?
Doing well. Doing well. So the biggest headliners so far, there's only been one day of OTAs, is the fact that some pretty big names are absent. Most notably, Terry McLaurin, Laramie
Mhm.
Tunsil, Marshawn Lattimore. I'm fine with
Mhm.
Terry skipping. He's skipped OTAs before when he's negotiating his last contract. I understand that's the same thing this go around. I expect that to get done. Tunsil, I give a pass because he's never played for the Commanders before, and he has a reputation for skipping on a lot of OTAs. The guy that I have a problem with, and I know it's voluntary, is Marshawn Lattimore. But just because of the recency effect of him looking ineffective when he played, for the most part, after getting acquired in the trade with the Saints, I just feel like it's bad optics for him not to show up. Do you feel the same way? What's the general
Or is
vibe
there a
around
reason
that?
he's not there that we don't know?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's more the veteran status where he just doesn't feel it helps him. I haven't talked to him, haven't been told that outright, but I don't get the sense that he regularly goes to OTAs and when they're voluntary. So I'm not terribly surprised. I understand the concern there, especially with the way he played coming off injury. There was so much talk at the end of the season that, once he gets more acclimated with the system, with the team, things will be better. And you would think he would want this time now to really start doing that. So I totally get that. They didn't seem terribly concerned. They didn't express it. If so, they have stayed in contact with him. So I would imagine he's just training on his own, much like Laramie Tunsil. Certainly, like Terry, there's no doubt there that Terry works hard on his own. But yeah, I mean, I totally get it. I think it becomes an issue if suddenly he doesn't show up for mandatory minicamp, which I have not heard that would be the case by any stretch. But yeah, I get it. But I think a lot of veterans are choosing that now.
Do you feel like I do, Nicki? And I think he's going to have a good year. I'm not saying he's going to have an all-pro year, but I think he's
Right.
going to be much better this year than he was last year because I assume he's going to come in healthy.
Yeah, I agree totally. I do think that hamstring issue was a real issue for him. I mean, you saw it on the field. He played one game and then 2 games later he was out again. He had a rough go, and it wasn't just a hamstring. It was, handling things mentally, not losing his cool on the field, which I know he has a history of, especially with a certain receiver. But yeah, I do think he'll be better. I mean, I agree with you. I don't know that he'll be where he was 2-3 years ago, but I don't, given, how much time he's been in the league, his age, et cetera, I don't know that would be totally expected of most players at this point, but I do think he'll be better. I think the secondary should be better. We'll see.
Nick, you tweeted this on May 28th at Nicki Jhabvala. That's spelled Jhabvala, in case people don't know that. Cliff Kingsbury said Jayden Daniels' arm strength is better, and he's, quote, stronger, no doubt. I don't care about him physically being stronger, but if his arm is actually stronger, that's improved from rookie season to year number 2. That's pretty big because his arm looked plenty strong in year 1. Have you seen that? I know it's not a lot you can divulge from one day of OTAs, but have you seen that in person?
Right. I mean, I was very curious to see that. I mean, I think we'll see more once they get on the field. They were in the bubble for this one OTA that we saw because of the rain. So there's only so much you can do in there. But I am very curious. I mean, he could throw bullets like last year. So, yeah, I'm curious if it's really noticeable, if it's more of, something you just see on occasional throws. But yeah, it was hard to tell in there, honestly. But I mean, I guess he looked. I know it was such a hot topic, and the team fueled this themselves, so I don't feel bad. I don't know that he looked bigger, to be honest, but he said he put on weight, so I don't doubt that. So maybe he is stronger, and I think it's more of a durability thing. Like he went a full year, as most rookies do, from the end of the college season with all the pre-draft stuff and right into mini rookie camp and OTAs and et cetera, et cetera. So you don't get a break. And that's a long season for anybody, but especially coming off, a college career. And I think he really learned a lot from that. And he learned a lot from Bobby on how to, maintain your body. So I think as most players do, when they reach their second or third seasons, they learn how to put on weight and give themselves some reserve going into the season. I mean, you see it with Terry all the time. You have to as a receiver.
Mm-hmm. I think Deebo is going to have a big year. Let's just, and we say this for every player, assuming he's healthy. I think he's going to have a big year. He's in a contract year. He's going to enjoy playing with McLaurin. He's going to enjoy playing in Cliff's system. I don't know. I don't know what your take is, but, and I'm kind of a 49er fan, so I kind of watched him over the last 5-6 years. But I just think if he stays healthy, he's going to be a huge part of this offense.
No, I agree. And physically, he looked good out there. I took a photo and I sent it to one of the 49ers writers just to make sure, does he look slimmer than last year? And oh yeah, he looks pretty svelte compared to where he was. And he's everything he says, the way he acts, he seems pretty hungry to prove himself. And I think that's a lot of what Dan Quinn and Adam Peters have tried to create is that, and not just a roster of guys on one-year deals, which means they're all in contract years and trying to prove themselves, but they go after guys that are eager to prove themselves. You look at Zach Ertz and what he did last year and really trying to prove he still has something left in the tank. And, other guys like that. They get a lot out of him, and I think Deebo could be the next one. He hasn't looked like the player he was a few years ago, but I think he certainly has it all still and can get back there.
Since you mentioned Zach Ertz, what about Ben Sinnott? Are you seeing him flash at all? Should we have greater expectations for the second-year tight end?
I think we should have greater expectations, but it's that time of year, and we've only seen really one practice inside, so it's hard to tell if he's really flashed at all, but I think the expectations should be greater, no doubt, especially if they view this guy as, sort of an heir to Zach Ertz. If he's gone next year, they didn't change that room, so you'd hope there'd be more from him. I think John Bates is a guy that is often overlooked, especially in the passing game, just because his forte is in blocking. But they did give him a significant 3-year deal, which you don't usually see for somebody with only 8 catches. So I think he's somebody that could be more involved. But yeah, I would hope you would see more from Benson. And I'm still curious to see what these guys look like on the actual field outside the bubble.
Mm-hmm. I know we're only 2 months away from camp, I guess, but are there a couple players, in your opinion, that really have to prove themselves more this upcoming summer, or they'll be looking for another job?
Yeah, I think you can look at the running backs room. I think they're all kind of sort of under pressure. It's a big year for Brian Robinson, obviously, a contract year. And I think their 7th round pick. Just because he's a 7th round pick, I think a lot of that is because of his circumstances coming out of college. I'm talking about Takori Cross-Merritt. Mm-hmm. I think he's a stud. I think he could be a really good player and could put pressure on the veterans. I don't think Brian Robinson's going anywhere this year, but guys like Austin Eckler, who looks really good now when he's healthy, if he's dealing with anything during the season and has to miss significant time again, I think that whole room, there's a ton of competition. I think somebody like Luke McCaffrey, he's got a lot to prove. Obviously, he didn't get a whole lot of touches, and he didn't really flash in the return game. And
right.
Now there's obviously Jaylen Lane with his speed. He looks like a top prospect as a returner.
Right.
So I think he's definitely one. And then the secondary, I think there's still so much unknown in the secondary. And they're going to be moving guys around throughout camp just to see where they fit in best. Mm-hmm. My prediction going in, I think Sanders still moves back into the slot. Obviously, Trey Amos and Marshawn outside at corner. But, where does that leave some of the veterans they signed? And then the O-line. I look at Andrew Wiley, who's sort of restructured his deal, is in the last year. Could he be one of those veteran casualties? I still think you keep him for depth at tackle. You need that. But, you never know who they claim off waivers. Once the rosters are formed, who else they bring in. We've seen many camps where the depth on the O-line has changed.
We're joined by Nicki Jhabvala, covers the Commanders for ESPN.com on the Rude Guest Hotline. So you touched on Jaylen Lane, and we know that he's going to make an impact in the return game. Do you see him getting worked into the offense as well by Cliff Kingsbury? Because he's that fast, twitchy type of guy that he can use as like a gadgety option on offense. How much do you see him impacting the offense in year one?
I could see him getting some work. That speed alone is huge, and I think they need more of that in this offense. So I could see him getting some work, maybe more inside. And I hate saying this because I know it's such a vague and boring answer, but I think we will see more as they get on the field. When they were in the bubble, it's more like 7-on-7 and a lot of individual development work. And the only other time we've seen Jaylen is in rookie minicamp. And he looks good there. But a lot of this is mostly just passing and returning and, the basics. So I could see him getting some work. Again, this is where I think the pressure on McCaffrey will come in, because that's kind of, if we're talking about, the second half of the receiving core, he could be one of the top names there. So.
And there's some pretty big names that they've signed in terms of veterans. Yeah. I mean, Gallup's out there, Ja'Cory Brooks they signed, Jacoby Jones. They still have KJ Osborne. I mean, all these guys can't make the roster, so there's going to be some decisions to be made.
Oh, totally. I think that'll be an interesting room. There's not a lot of, outside of Terry, Deebo, maybe Noah Brown, there's not a lot of super top names, but I think there's a lot of competition for those final 2-3 spots.
Mm-hmm. We did a segment, Nicki, on the Jalen Ramsey rumors, and I guess Jeremy Fowler thrown out there that the Commanders might be one of those teams interested in trading for him. I don't think he will. I don't think Adam will go after him. I don't know why he would add another. I know Ramsey's a good player, but I just don't see them adding another veteran when they drafted guys in the second round the last couple of years at that position. But your thoughts on that? Is that a possibility in your opinion?
I mean, I think anything's a possibility. I think Adam has shown that he's willing to make the splash moves if he feels like his team is close. I thought the Marshawn Lattimore trade was the biggest sign of that. They were coming up at 7 wins at that point, and he's shown he's willing to make the move. I'm with you. I don't really see the point there. Again, Jalen Ramsey is, a great corner. I think he would be great, but who are you sitting down to? You just traded for Marshawn. You haven't really given him a full season. Who are you sitting down to put Jalen in?
Right.
I mean, I don't think so. I'm not really seeing
You're not buying into that one, right? Okay.
Not totally.
All right. Well, so practice today is outside, I assume, because the weather's nice now. I know it's going to be stormy later, but they're outside today, correct?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yep. And then they're off until early next week, midweek.
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's a 4th. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool.
Tuesday, Thursday. Yeah.
All right. Well, have fun. We'll maybe talk to you in the next couple weeks.
All right. Sounds good.
Thanks, Nicki.
Bye.
Tuesday, Thursday next week.
Yep.
Okay.
Getting ramped up.
I can't take anything from OTAs that seriously. I mean, we played a clip and it was encouraging of Logan Paulson earlier in the show on the Take Command podcast with our pal Craig Hoffman. And it was great to hear how Jayden Daniels went through his progressions and everything. But when you hear these reports about interceptions, it's just a huge overreaction.
Well,
I know I had fun with the Shedeur Sanders.
You were overreacting on Shedeur Sanders. Exactly.
I mean, but I really don't put that much stock into it.
If Shedeur Sanders had thrown 4 picks in his first OTA practice, and we brought that up, you'd say, "Oh, but it's OTAs."
Yeah. Right. I'll agree with you.
It gets explained away.
Right. But if he doesn't, he throws 3 touchdowns. You're like, you know what? It looks pretty damn good.
Hey, coming up at 9:45, we'll talk movies with Kevin McCarthy here on the Junkies.